Okay, so Chainsaw Man chapter 231 just came out, and also alongside it, we just found out that Chainsaw Man is ending. We've got less than 2 weeks left and one chapter until the series is just done. Now, we don't know if that means part 2 is done and we're getting part 3, or we don't know if this is just the end. I don't want to speculate just yet. I'll throw in my 2 cents in a minute, but before I do all of that, I kind of just want to go through the chapter. I had a whole mess of different feelings reading it. I didn't know what to like feel definitively. There's emotions were running high for the whole chapter. And I think that's to be expected because big things happen, but we'll go through the chapter and then we'll get into the discussion around it. So the chapter begins with 2 black panels, and then we see a close-up of a dove, and they're soaring over the sky. We then move down to Denji and Pochita laying in a field, with Pochita sitting on Denji's chest. And Denji's wondering, how did we get here? What happened? We were just about to get attacked by a devil from the last chapter. Pochita tells him, we got eaten by a devil. Denji's there panicking, and then he says what's gonna happen to them, only for Pochita to follow up with, our dream life together is over. But maybe that's a good thing. Obviously, Denji starts freaking out. No way, that's not a good thing. It can't be good. And then he starts talking about what was about to happen to him. He says, I was so close to getting to have sex. And kisses, I could have had unlimited kisses. Only for Pochita to tell him what I personally have been waiting for somebody to tell Denji. It's good that you didn't get to do that, Denji. Naturally, Denji starts freaking out again. He says, are you serious? He's shocked. You can see what's going on his face. Pochita follows up with, when you found a precious family, when you got to go to the school you wanted to attend, and when you connected with Asa, some part of you was still unhappy, right? And then we get to see Denji's shocked face before he calms down and seems to take in and accept what Pochita's saying to him. Pochita continues, unfortunately, you must have noticed too. You were far happier starving and suffering, fighting devils, and eating spoiled bread in that rundown shack. Whilst Pochita's saying this, he's also transforming from his dog form into his true form as Chainsaw Man. He then says to Denji, turns out, you had the crappiest but best kind of brain. One that can only find heaven when you're in hell. And then we move on to what is probably one of the most heartbreaking and beautiful panels in the series. Pochita there in his true form, adorned with all the chainsaws, is hugging Denji. We see Denji's shocked face and then Pochita slowly backing away before he shoves his chainsaw into his chest and rips out his heart. Then he tells Denji he's going to eat himself. Denji naturally is freaking out, says, what the hell, Pochita? Pochita then tells Denji that he doesn't know what's gonna happen. A world in which Chainsaw Man never existed will be created. Denji's telling him, you can't do that, I don't want to lose you. Pochita then continues, in a world without me, maybe you could keep dreaming. Since meeting you, I've seen all the dreams I wanted to see. And he puts his own heart into his mouth, and before chomping down he says, keep on dreaming, Denji. Denji tries to call out to Pochita to stop him, but then we see the chomp. And just as Denji's standing up, reaching his hand out to Pochita, we see one final image of him waving goodbye to Denji in his dog form, before we get a black panel. Then all of a sudden we're in a forest, we're surrounded by trees, and then on the final page, we see the shack that Denji and Pochita used to live in together. Now I will say that chapter is a lot to take in. We went from expecting Denji to have this insane fight at the end of the last chapter, when he pulls the cord and then says his iconic, if you're gonna get in our way, then die, into Pochita eating himself and no longer being here with Denji anymore, telling him that, oh, I need to do this. It's, you can keep dreaming if I'm gone. It's a huge, massive whiplash. And then on top of such, it's already an insanely emotional chapter, but on top of it, We've then been coupled with the news that the series is ending in 2 weeks. A character that's been with us since the very beginning just died. And at the same time, we know the series only has one more chapter. I do want to discuss the chapter with you and try my best to get my thoughts out there, try my best to give you some insight into what I'm thinking and feeling, or hearing what you might be thinking and feeling. It's been an extremely divisive chapter. I saw social media exploding over it. I saw a lot of cope. I saw a lot of delusion. I saw a lot of people angry. I saw a lot of people sad. Everything in between. And it's not like I could pick any one side to take. It's all valid. It's all valid. I feel like all the reactions to it, I definitely understood them because I felt the exact same thing. But overall, I do think it's a great chapter. I think it's an incredible chapter, if not one of my favorites in Chainsaw Man as a whole. I think the hug between them is, like I said before, it's insanely beautiful. In part 1, Pochita tells Denji that his wish was to have somebody hug him. And we end off part 1 with Denji and Pochita finally hugging, embracing each other. And Pochita getting to experience that gentleness, that tenderness that he wanted to feel for so long. But he couldn't because he's so strong. And then we come back at the end of part 2, or the end of the series, we don't know yet. And we come back to that moment, or we have a new moment where it is them two hugging each other. But this time, Pochita isn't in his dog form, he's in his true form as Chainsaw Man. He was always too strong to get that tenderness, that gentleness before, but now he's being him true self and he's able to hug Denji as him, not as the dog form. I think that's something really special, and it's something really emotional, obviously, because it's the dream that Pochita wanted for so long, and he's achieving it as his truest self. Adding on to that, all the callbacks to part 1, chapter 1, this chapter were insane. The location we're in is the field, the place where Denji and Pochita met for the first time. The place where Denji let Pochita have his blood in exchange for Pochita helping him. His dad's gravesite. So that was an insane callback. We opened the chapter on a shot of a dove flying by, and we had the previous chapters before with the end of the war between Yoru, the War Devil, and Chainsaw Man. They came to an end because of the Dove of Peace. And we start this one with just the dove flying right by, flying overhead. No other doves, one singular one going through the sky. But another little parallel I noticed was when Denji just got dismembered by the zombie devil, and him and Pochita are talking in Denji's subconscious. Denji is laying down in the bin, but Pochita is sitting on his chest. This is kind of the opposite. It's got Denji sitting up and Pochita laying down. I don't know how much relevance it has, but I thought it was a nice little callback. It was a nice little way to flip the roles. Instead, this time, it isn't Denji that's the one that's vulnerable and laying down. It's Pochita the one that's vulnerable and laying down on Denji, because this is his last moment. I saw that shack, it brought back so much to me. We've been with these characters for 231 chapters now. That's insane, and we haven't seen the shack again since chapter 1. So to loop back around to where we started for where we're ending, obviously it's extremely powerful to do that. But I do think it's definitely kind of a statement on how Denji's character arc has progressed, or I guess in some cases regressed as well. But I will talk about that a bit further in a second. Obviously the main thing in this chapter is Pochita and him deciding that he has to eat himself, him making that decision. I saw a lot of talk around that, but I do think this is the moment where it really settles in for Pochita that Denji's been using being Chainsaw Man as a crutch, as a form of escapism. In a lot of ways, in fact, no, not in a lot of ways, just actually, he is addicted to it. It is like an addiction for him, being Chainsaw Man. We see him reaching for it whenever life is going wrong. I do think this is also the same moment Pochita's realized, and not just that, but accepting that this contract the two of them have of living a normal life together is keeping Denji trapped in a cycle of being unsatisfied. Rather than trying to deal with his personal life like normal people do, instead of dreaming of being somebody else, of being away from the situation, but then coming back to reality and dealing with it, Denji's able to go and be Chainsaw Man. He's able to run from just being himself, being a human. Which is why Pochita says it means our dream together is over, but maybe that's not a bad thing. Maybe this is the chance for you to dream of something. I don't want to keep you trapped anymore. You need to go out and you need to dream. You have to do this. He also talks about Denji being happier when they lived in that shack together, when they were drowned in debt, when they were under threat by the Yakuza, they were forced to eat moldy bread, they had to fight devils every day. I'm seeing Pochita saying that being misconstrued a lot online. He's not saying Denji was happy being miserable, Denji was happy eating moldy bread, suffering every day, having to sell his body parts for money to pay off the Yakuza. That's not at all what he's saying. What he was trying to say was that Denji was happy dreaming and having a goal to work towards, no matter how much he suffered for it. Not necessarily that the suffering itself was what Denji took pleasure in, but that the act of striving for something else is what Denji was the happiest doing. I've spoken about this before in the last video I just posted about Chainsaw Man and Cyberpunk, but I spoke about how to be happy is for your dreams to grow and for your dreams to change, and how that idea is kind of spoken about a lot in Chainsaw Man, but it's also a question that's outright asked to Denji, the country mouse or the city mouse. I've already given my thoughts on how I think to be solely focused on it is to miss the point, because life is a mix of everything, but you can check out that video if you're interested. And for my personal opinion on it, I do think this had to happen, or something like this had to happen. I think there needed to be consequences for Denji's actions, his selfishness and the unhealthy habits he's gotten into and hasn't broken. There's been multiple chances for Denji to change and to grow, and he just hasn't fully done that yet. So Pochita realized that he can't keep falling on Chainsaw Man as a crutch, so he had to get rid of the option of doing that for him. I think Pochita's last act of love was letting Denji go and putting it on the line for him one last time, trusting Denji's future in his hands, telling him to go out on his own, to find a new dream, to find something else to work towards. Do it for you, don't try and be me. It's something I don't think we should be all too surprised about, because it's the likely conclusion part 2 was coming to anyway. It's something we've been building to quite a bit. Denji starts off part 2 and he's insanely happy because the public loves Chainsaw Man. He's being praised, girls are interested in getting Chainsaw Man's number, and he stands there, he's proud. He's having a good time. This whole part has been about making Denji choose, and Denji's answer has been, I choose 2 choices. He's trying to have his cake and eat it, quite literally. But to his credit and his defense, he does try to change, he does try to grow sometimes. He gets forced between picking Nayuta's life or being Chainsaw Man, and he does try his best not to pick Chainsaw Man. He chooses Nayuta, he wants to save her, he wants her to be safe because he cares about her. But he's also going against something he's addicted to, something he's actually become codependent on. He feels like he can't function without having the outlet of being Chainsaw Man. He tries to choose Nayuta's life and he doesn't transform into Chainsaw Man for a while because he cares about her, because he wants to protect her. But whilst he's trying to change, whilst he's trying to grow, whilst he's trying to choose Nayuta, he regresses and he falls back into old habits, and he starts falling for manipulation again and starts getting obsessed with sex again, and he starts acting a little more selfishly as well. I think one of the best ways we can see that is in his relationship with both Asa and Yoru. After a certain point, Denji becomes keenly aware that Asa's body is split with Yoru, and while he's talking to Yoru, Asa has no control over her body. We see Yoru talk about and do sexual acts with Denji, and even though he knows Asa's body is being used, it isn't her own at that moment in time. He's more interested in the satisfaction he's getting, that escapism he's feeling from sex. By this point, we're all aware that Denji is a victim, but that should be used to explain his actions, not excuse them. He's not meant to be perfect as a person, as an abuse victim at all. He's meant to show how abuse can impact a person, but also how strongly it can impact the people around the victim too. Asa's turned into a victim by Yoru, and we can see that in chapter 167, where Yoru uses Asa's body to sexually assault Denji. But she's also further turned into a victim by Denji using her body with Yoru. He knows that Asa's no longer in control and that she can't consent to anything, and it's Yoru that's in control of her body. But he's more fulfilled by the escapism that he's getting from sex. I don't think Denji's a bad person. I don't think he should be reduced to just either being a good or a bad person. I never think any character should just be reduced to that. There's more interesting discussion to be had when we can see the nuances in characters and talk about them. But some people do think he is, and I just want to point out, he does genuinely have good intentions. He does try again. Just a few chapters ago, he was thinking more clearly. He was talking with Asa about creating a new world, and we can see he's thinking more clearly and matured in that chapter, because he goes from being presented as a child in his subconscious to being grown up to being the age he currently is. He's no longer just wearing that tattered vest or anything, he's also in his school uniform. He's thinking clearly, his head's on straight in that chapter. Which is why he makes that promise with Asa, because that's what he truly wants, to build that new world with her. And at the same time, he also accepted and understood that he was being manipulated. It's something that he already knew, but hearing him say it for himself is a major point, that he knows what's going on. So that new world, separate from the things that he was manipulated into doing, the manipulation he succumbed to and accepted, shows that he does genuinely have good intentions and want a future with Asa, but he gets selfish again. The whole time he's fighting Yoru and they're having this war, he's telling Yoru, I'm going to keep doing this, I'm going to keep eating random devils until you give Asa her body back. But when they stop fighting and the truce is struck, that's when Yoru agrees to have sex with him, and Denji just stops thinking about Asa's autonomy over her own body, her sense of agency, and he's just purely excited to have sex. To paraphrase his own words, he's thinking with the wrong head. Seeing how Pochita specifically mentioned Asa and how she was the person he formed a connection to, I think that's the moment Pochita fully accepted that this can't go on, it has to stop. Seeing somebody Denji formed such a strong connection to, and he's not taking her into consideration anymore. Something had to change. There had to be some form of consequence for that level of selfishness Denji has been showing. And I did speak about this in the last video, the country mouse and the city mouse, and how Denji always wants something to strive for, a goal, a dream, no matter what it is. I think what Pochita's trying to tell Denji by saying he had the crappiest but best kind of brain is exactly what I was talking about, that it's who you are, it's who Denji is. Don't feel guilty for it. But at the same time, Pochita's accepting that this can't continue. The option of being Chainsaw Man is ruining Denji. It's getting him to stop thinking. And on top of that, he's already being selfish by seeking escapism through sex at the consequence of Asa's autonomy. At the same time though, people are taking the "you're happier dreaming, your brain is the type where you can only find heaven when you're in hell" to mean that Denji won't find lasting happiness. He's not the type of person that can find it, and struggling and working for it is the only thing that will bring him any degree of happiness in life. And that's the theme and the message they're choosing to take away from Chainsaw Man and Denji's story. I don't think that's the case in the slightest, and I don't think that's what Fujimoto wants our last impression to be from Chainsaw Man. I think one of the biggest and most important themes is that you can't and won't find long-term happiness by relying on your crutches, by slipping back into old habits. You have to try and change. You have to try and make a choice between being who you were and being something new, trying to do better, waking up every day and striving for some sort of progress, not just relapsing into the person you were yesterday. I think if anything, that's one of the broader things we should take away from Denji's story. And at its core, that's kind of what this chapter is telling us, but well, screaming at us. But even with all that being said, even as much as I love the chapter, as much as I have to say about it, both good and bad, I'm still left with a bunch of questions that I don't know if they'll be satisfyingly answered with the last chapter. Like, what will happen to the world? Because it's a mess right now. The insect devils are roaming around and humanity's stuck in a cycle of not dying, being killed, reproducing, and all over again. Also, what happened to Yoru? The last time we saw her, Denji gave her blood and they was up and ready to run away from the devils that were coming towards them. And more importantly, what happened to Asa? The last time we saw her was when she was talking with Yoru and she was trying to tell Denji to run away. I do think that's one of my bigger problems as we've continued with part 2 as well. The almost sidelining of Asa. We start out with her as the protagonist, and as we're getting reintroduced to Denji and the struggle he's got going on, we start to see less and less of Asa. We start to hear even less of her thoughts. And she was one of the most, if not the most interesting character to come out of part 2. In fact, Denji is my favorite character and is my favorite character in this series, but Asa's only behind by a very, very small portion. So it does make me sad to see her be a little sidelined like this in favor of Denji. I hope we see more of her, but I'm not going to speculate. We've got 2 weeks. I'm gonna wait to see what Fujimoto does. You know, after all of that, I still love Denji as a character. Nothing will ever change that. He's the most I've ever felt seen and represented and understood. And that goes for everything. It goes for every book I've ever read, every film I've ever watched, TV show, series, piece of music I've listened to. I've never felt as much of a connection, as close or as emotionally attached to any character the same way I feel with Denji. It's insane. And in the same breath, I'm seeing people talk about, oh, all Denji had to do was change, all he had to do was that. I think it's useful to have the discussions around that, but I, for one, I'm tired of characters, and main characters especially, just knowing what to do. I'm tired of them being perfect, or their one major flaw is that they're too kind. I don't want to see that trope anymore. It's not interesting to me. I'm very, very happy that Denji is a very, very flawed person. I really did want him to change and grow and develop. I didn't want him to stay stuck in that cycle, to keep picking selfishness or to keep relapsing into his old ways. That's not something that does fill me with happiness. I do think it's interesting storytelling, but I don't think that's the only thing I wanted to see from the character. And I don't think that's what a lot of us wanted either. I know some people feel like a lot of Chainsaw Man fans are happy week to week that we get to see Denji mess up because we get to insult him or be annoyed and then experience it all over again, that there's some joy in seeing his misery. But I don't see that from a lot of the Chainsaw Man fans that I interact with. I don't see that from myself. I don't take much joy in it. Denji feels insanely close to me, and I'm sure he feels insanely close to you, to all of us. Like, I want to say like a friend, but to me, I feel a lot closer to him than that, like I've just said. Maybe a second self or a brother. It feels like he let himself down, and he let us all down when we wanted him to do better and get better. But I guess also one of the major themes in Chainsaw Man would be addiction. Maybe not themes, but one of the major storytelling points would be addiction. And I imagine this is what it must feel like to be around somebody who does have an addiction. The constant want for them to change and seeing little sparks of it in them, but not fully seeing it actualized. Overall, no matter which way we go, it's going to be a controversial ending. Endings to series like this that have been running for a little while always are. It's always going to be divisive. But I've got to say, personally, I am happy with it. I do think there genuinely had to be consequences for all the things Denji's done, for all the things he hasn't done. But I'm also sad. Well, I'm sad that we won't get to see more of Asa. That's one of my biggest things that I'm sad about leaving Chainsaw Man. But I'm also sad that things have gone the way they went, with Denji not managing to fully change and grow. There's still one more chapter left as far as we know. Maybe it's the last chapter of the series, maybe it's the last chapter of part 2. We just don't know yet. Well, as of recording, I just don't know yet. So either way, with whatever happens, I can say I'm gonna miss this series a lot. I'm not saying goodbye to it just yet. I feel the next chapter is when I know what I want to say, when I feel like I can just let everything out, because I want to see where this goes. But I'm definitely gonna miss this series. I don't feel like I'm ready to say goodbye to these characters yet. I don't feel like a lot of people are ready to say goodbye to these characters yet. But I mean, it's happening. It's happening. So, oh, also on a personal note, just to rub my face in it, a Pochita keyring that I did order just came in the day that Pochita died. You can't make this up. But yeah, that's mostly everything I've got to say. I still have so much more reverberating inside my head, but I can't figure out the way to phrase it or get it out, and there's going to be a lot more discussion about Chainsaw Man over the next 2 weeks, so I'm sure you'll either see me tweet about it on Twitter or maybe post about it on here too. But please let me know what you thought about the chapter. Are you ready for this series to end? Are you ready to say goodbye to the characters? Did you even like the chapter? Did you feel it was too much? Were you not happy with the conclusion of Pochita's character? What did you want to see from it? What didn't you get to see from it? No matter what it is, please do just comment and let me know. I'd love to hear as many point of views on this as I can, because I know there are certain crowds on social media that it's just agenda pushing. That's going to be a half of the other discussion. Part will be distraught, part will be cope, and then the other bit will be agenda pushing. So I'd love to be able to genuinely hear what people think about where the series has gone from other fans. Last thing, I do trust in what Fujimoto's doing. I'm interested to see where it goes. That's about it from me. Like, comment, subscribe, and hopefully I will see you next time for the last chapter of Chainsaw Man.